The United States has now killed 11 Venezuelans, allegedly cartel members, though that word allegedly does a lot of work here. Because when Tomahawk-capable warships are parked off your shores and Marines are waiting for orders, it stops looking like a drug bust and starts looking like the opening act of something far larger. The deployment that Washington insists is about counter-narcotics feels suspiciously like the groundwork for a war. And the big question hanging in the air is simple. Is Venezuela about to become the newest square on the map of global conflict? The ship at the heart of this discussion is the USS Lake Erie, named after what many would argue is the most beautiful of the Great Lakes. But there is little beauty in her current role. She is one of at least 9 American naval vessels deployed toward Venezuela, part of a task force that includes a cruiser, 3 destroyers, a submarine, an amphibious assault ship, and several support vessels. This is not the kind of force you send to chase down drug smugglers in fishing boats. This is the kind of force you send when you are preparing to project serious power against a state adversary. Washington may say it is about drugs, but the size and shape of the deployment say something else entirely. Consider the Iwo Jima, one of the ships in the group. To the untrained eye, it looks like an aircraft carrier, and in some ways it practically is. It is only 250 feet shorter than a Nimitz-class carrier, and it has the ability to launch helicopters, tilt-rotor aircraft, and Marines onto foreign shores. It can carry a Marine expeditionary unit of thousands, ready to land on Venezuelan soil at a moment's notice. That is not a tool for intercepting cocaine shipments. That is a tool for intervention, invasion, and regime change. Even the destroyers and cruiser carry dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles, each with a range long enough to strike across the entire length of Venezuela. These missiles were designed for taking out hardened targets deep inside enemy territory, not blasting small speedboats carrying cartel operatives. So the question is obvious. What is the United States really doing here? Drugs are the official excuse, but this level of force for such a limited mission is absurd. Something else is at play. There are several possible explanations, each one more explosive than the last, and all of them fit with America's recent willingness to flex military muscle abroad. The first is Russia. Venezuela has long courted Moscow, and rumors have floated about Russian deployments to the region, including reports of nuclear-capable hypersonic missiles being stationed in Venezuelan territory. Those reports fizzled, but the symbolism matters. Even if such missiles would not fundamentally change the balance of power, Russia already has ICBMs that can strike the U.S. The imagery of Moscow stationing advanced weapons in America's backyard revives the ghost of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Washington may be responding with a show of force meant less to fight cartels and more to remind Russia that the Western Hemisphere is off limits. In other words, a 21st century version of the Monroe Doctrine with cruise missiles instead of wooden frigates. The second explanation involves Iran. Venezuela has already dabbled in drone production, building the Zamora 5-1 based on Iran's Shahed 131. That drone's range is short, but if Venezuela, with Iranian help, begins producing longer-range models, the calculus changes dramatically. A Shahed with a 1,600-mile range could easily reach Florida. That represents a new kind of threat, one Washington may be determined to stop before it materializes. After all, the United States already struck Iranian nuclear facilities earlier this year, relying heavily on Tomahawk missiles. Now a fleet bristling with those same weapons sits poised off Venezuela, and it does not take much imagination to picture their intended targets being drone factories rather than drug warehouses. A third possibility revolves around oil. Neighboring Guyana stunned the world with massive offshore oil discoveries, instantly transforming its economic future. Venezuela promptly claimed parts of Guyana's territory, and with it, the oil. The disputes boiled over late in 2023 and again this year, with Venezuelan patrol ships threatening ExxonMobil production facilities and even firing on boats carrying Guyanese officials. With American corporate interests at risk, the deployment of U.S. warships might be less about protecting Americans from drugs and more about protecting ExxonMobil from Venezuela. Energy, as always, lies at the heart of geopolitics. But the most volatile theory is also the most obvious: regime change. The United States has been gunning for Nicolás Maduro for years. It has plastered his face on a wanted poster, offering $50 million for information leading to his arrest. It has recognized opposition leaders as the rightful winners of elections that Maduro allegedly stole, and now it has positioned a naval task force within striking distance of Caracas. If the United States wanted to push for Maduro's downfall, the pieces are already on the board. Granted, the force offshore is too small for a full-scale invasion. In 1989, the U.S. deployed 27,000 troops to Panama to take down Manuel Noriega. Today's Marine detachment is about 3,000 strong, but that may be enough if paired with domestic unrest. Maduro is deeply unpopular inside Venezuela. By many accounts, he lost the 2024 election by a wide margin. Opposition figures wait in exile, ready to return. The problem for protesters has always been fear. Going up against a heavily armed government is a suicide mission without outside support. If Venezuelans believe the U.S. is backing them, if they know that Tomahawks and Marines will prevent them from being crushed, then they might rise. In this way, the United States doesn't need